Why the S9 doesn't excite me as much as the S8, and why I think it probably might not sell as much. For quite a lot of time, it has been the same way. Samsung innovates a lot and teases Apple for not innovating. Right? There's the S Plus or the S Edge, and there's the Note series. For quite some time, it's been the same way. There's not much of a difference between the S and the S Plus. In the case of the S8 and the S8 Plus, there was the bigger battery for the bigger display. So there was no difference except for the display and the battery if you get the S8 or the S8 Plus. While you get this 8 or the 8 Plus or the iPhone 8 or the 8 Plus, you get extra RAM, you get the bigger display, you get the sharper display, you get more battery, you get dual cameras. There has been quite a lot of difference. You get portrait mode, you get double zoom, and Samsung has always been like people have always taken Samsung like you get the smaller product, you aren't losing much of the experience, you are just getting a smaller display. Well, now it seems to have changed. For years it's been like this, right? Apple, they just iterate on their designs, right? Because if you look at the front of the 6 or the 6s or the 7 or the 8, there's not a difference, there's not really a difference. You won't notice it until you turn it around the back, and everybody's been knocking Apple for that. Why have you put the same design? Maybe like Samsung, just look at the difference between the S7 and the S8. It's huge, right? But this year, there's no difference in the front. While Samsung has always been up for innovations, there's been no difference. Well, Samsung has always been like you get a similar experience across the bigger or the smaller model. Now, according to the rumors, you get 2 gigabytes less RAM, you get the smaller battery, that's okay because it has a smaller display. But then you also get the single camera, and you get the dual camera on the S9 Plus, so you have to pay extra to get the extra RAM, you have to pay extra to get the portrait mode. I know there's selective focus, but the portrait mode, the proper portrait mode, and you have to pay extra to get the dual zoom, just like Apple. Like the exact same difference between the 8 and the 8 Plus. You get the bigger display, you get the bigger battery, you get the dual cameras, you get the 2x zoom, you get the portrait mode, and you get the extra RAM. Why? And that's the way Samsung has always been. You get the S7 and you get the S8, you know the difference. You get the 6 or you get the 6s, people don't know the difference until they use 3D touch, which you can disable. They use the faster touch ID, which you also can disable. They use the better camera, which, yeah, some people might be able to notice it, or they see that very tiny S badge which has been covered with like a case most of the times. But then you pick up an S7, you pick up an S8, you know which phone is which. Now you pick up the S8, you pick up the S9, you have to look at the back to know which phone it is. That's not at all like Samsung. Samsung never does that. It's always been there's always been enough difference for people to tell. Even in the case of the S6 and the S7, people can tell whether it's the S6 Edge or the S7 Edge. There is a difference, but now there's no difference, and it's the same RAM, just a faster processor. So why would people upgrade? That makes no sense. Also, its biggest problem is the iPhone. Now, why the iPhone? Let me tell you. So, the biggest competitor to the S9 and the S9 Plus is the iPhone 10. It's priced similarly. I mean, the S8 and the S8 Plus will be expensive, so will be the iPhone 10. But then the iPhone 10 will get more software updates. It has a new gesture based system. Apple finally updated, and I have used the S8 and the S8 Plus and the Note 8 and the iPhone 10, and the iPhone 10 looks better in my opinion. Like, your opinion may vary, but it does look better in my opinion. Also, it seems to have smaller bezels, even though that might not be the case. The gesture based controls are good. I mean, I like them better than software buttons for some odd reason, even though when the rotation is flipped they do tend to get a bit awkward, like they change from the left to the right. And yeah, they are a bit awkward and a bit tedious to get used to, but they are good. And it has the innovation that Apple hasn't done. It has 4K 60 FPS, which also the S9 will bring. That's also nothing new. And most people, they don't look at speeds, like they don't test the phone side by side to compare. What do? They just search Geekbench scores, and the iPhone 10 is still crushing it. I mean, I have seen the S9 Geekbench leaks. The multi-core is somewhere near 8,000. That's lower than the iPhone 10. The single core score is near 2400. That's lower than the iPhone 6s. I mean, there's no competition in Geekbench scores. And people do base phones around Geekbench scores, even though that's not ever like, that's not really accurate, but still, people do base it around Geekbench scores. So now you're getting a phone that has a good display, both of them. Both of them have powerful phone. Both of them are powerful. They have good cameras, like excellent cameras. Both can record 4K 60 FPS. The iPhone has a leg up. It can record HEVC, H.265 compression that Google doesn't offer yet. Smaller video sizes. The software will be updated more. Generally, it also has the Taptic engine, water resistance, stereo speakers. The S9 will have mono speakers. The headphone jack is slowly fading away. Less and less phones are now having the headphone jack. It's becoming more of a novelty feature now. The S9 will advertise on that, but I'm not so sure it will work anymore, because a lot of people might have migrated to a headphone jack less phone, and a lot of people are okay with it. I mean, I have seen many people use iPhone 7s, the smaller battery, everything. They're still okay with it. They don't even carry the dongle. They might not use it. I myself use Bluetooth earphones, even though I have a phone with a headphone jack. I don't use the headphone jack very often. I mean, I have gone a week without using it, and I didn't really feel the need of using it. So I get the point. Then why not have stereo speakers instead of a headphone jack? And overall, yes, the S9 will have Touch ID or fingerprint unlock, whatever you want to say. It will have the iris sensing, but iPhone 10 has Face ID. And not to be biased, but my fingers don't work with fingerprint sensors very well. So I already use facial unlock on my Android phones, and I'm pretty used to it. And like, that's one thing that sucked about iOS till the iPhone 10. No facial unlock, no pattern. I always had to put that pin in, and people would know what the pin is after a while. But still, I use facial unlock more than I use fingerprint sensors on my Android phones. So I'm totally fine with not having a fingerprint sensor. And overall, the iPhone 10 just seems like a better deal. So why? And already it's selling a lot. So why would people buy an iterative update like the S9? An iterative update from Samsung. Samsung, a company that doesn't do iterative updates. This is my reason on why the S9 will not sell as much as the S8.